I mean, I am, in my estimation anyway, the typical person living with HIV in 2017.
Yeah.
I'm undetectable. I have been since very shortly after my diagnosis.
Okay.
I was diagnosed back in February of 2015. And very quickly got on the antiretroviral drugs and became healthy again very quickly. It was not something that I expected. I still remember the night that I went to the local clinic in Ottawa and got tested every, I think it's the last Thursday of every month is the gay men's clinic at one of the local spots in Ottawa. And excuse me, I had been getting tested fairly regularly since getting out of a relationship and back in the wonderful world of dating.
Yep. Just smart.
Yeah, absolutely. And I absolutely encourage everyone to get tested and get tested regularly. But yeah, it was a cold February night. I hadn't been feeling well. I just thought it was the flu, and I had had a bad pneumonia a few years prior to that, so I was very susceptible to getting bad colds and flus and pneumonias and whatnot. And I just thought it was more of the same, but it was one of those nagging illnesses that just wasn't going away. So despite going to my doctor and getting all the flu medication, nothing was really working. So decided I would go and get tested, and it was almost time for my regularly scheduled testing anyway, and you could have knocked me over with a feather when they gave me the news. And I went by myself. I wasn't dating anyone at the time. I was living alone, and so it was a very isolating feeling. I remember the nurse asking me if I was okay to go home, and I was living in downtown Ottawa at the time, so it wasn't a very long walk. And I'm glad I took that walk, because I really needed that walk back to my apartment to sort of clear my head and get some of the negative thoughts out of my head. I think on the walk back to my apartment the night I was diagnosed, I think I came up with a few different scenarios on how to end my life. And by the time I did get home, realized that that's not what I wanted. I still wanted to live my life. I still felt I had a lot to live for. And I had, at that point, known individuals that had HIV, and I knew that it wasn't the death sentence that it used to be. And so I got on the phone right away to acquaintances and friends that were positive and said, okay, I just got diagnosed. What do I do? Who do I go see? I got hooked up with a world-renowned HIV doctor in Ottawa. Went in to see him almost immediately, and again got all the further tests done that they don't do at the clinic, got the diagnosis confirmed, went on my meds, and started living my life again.
Perfect.
But yeah, there is absolutely still a lot of stigma associated with HIV and being HIV positive. And what's really disheartening is a lot of that stigma is within the LGBTQ community.
Absolutely.
Which is, to this day, still boggles my mind, because we're supposed to be such a warm, accepting, and understanding community that, you know, that almost wiped us out.
You did mention a few things like being undetectable. So these are things that we're going to talk a little bit more in detail. So tell me a little bit about what undetectable means.
Well, undetectable essentially means that the amount of virus in my bloodstream is so low, thanks to the antiretroviral drugs that I'm on, that blood tests do not, it's not picked up in a blood test.
Okay.
Not only does it mean that, but it also means that the likelihood of my transmitting the virus to my partner or anyone else is negligible. There's been no documented cases that I'm aware of where someone who is undetectable has actually transmitted the disease to another individual.
Absolutely.
So I'm safer than people that think they are HIV negative that had never actually been tested.
This was something that, so I follow Katie. It's an organization that talks a lot about the HIV/AIDS issues, and also about research and education. And it was just earlier this year that the U=U came out. Right. And, you know, undetectable means, you know, untransmittable. And I was shocked, because I mean, I studied in university. I studied the HIV/AIDS pandemic, and this was over 10 years ago. And we did not talk about this. This is not this is very new information, and that means that the research that's happening and the work that's being put into, you know, the antiviral medications and everything, it's working. you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's working. And
I truly believe there's a cure in the future.
I absolutely agree with you.
I really do.
Yeah, I believe that there is a cure in the future as well. And I think that it's important that we continue to, you know, smash that stigma by having these open conversations. So I applaud you for being here and talking to us today about your experience.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I don't do it for accolades. I think it's important. I think because I have been the victim of the stigma associated with it. My life has been threatened.
Absolutely.
Just because of the fact that I have an illness. And that's wrong. I mean, it's no different than if I had diabetes or cancer.
Yeah.
You know, the stigma associated with HIV/AIDS is heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking.
And it's got to end. And like I said earlier, what really gets me is the amount of it that is within our own community.
Yeah. Yeah, so we were talking about that before the break, that we would expect that it's the people outside of the LGBT community that would be more, you know, that would give you more of a hard time, or, you know, about being positive, but it is still very, you know, strong, that the pain and the struggle is still very strong within the LGBT. And why do you think that is?
I think it all stems from fear and lack of education, really, which to me is laziness. Is what that boils down to. And I mean, I take every opportunity I can when I'm speaking to, especially the youth in the LGBT community, to encourage them to learn about it. I'll tell them, I'm not an expert, you know.
Yeah.
I have HIV, yes. I know a lot about HIV just because I've researched it myself and for my own health, to make sure that I'm healthy, but I'm not a scientist. I'm not an expert. I read the same articles. I go on Google. I see things on Facebook. I speak to friends at the ACO, the AIDS Committee of Ottawa, who helped me a lot when I when I was first diagnosed. So I encourage anybody who doesn't know about it to do that same thing, to learn about it, and that's where the awareness comes in, and the stigma can be finally smashed, as you say, when we learn the truth about it. It's not the big scary, you know, it's not 1985 anymore. It's 2017.
It's 2017.
It's time we all realize that.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about your family's response. So you talked a little bit about your family's response to coming out, you know, and what that was like. What was your family's response for your diagnosis?
That was a little different because my original thought when I was first diagnosed was, you know what, it's really nobody's business unless I'm going to be sleeping with you.
Yeah.
You know, and right from day one, I was very open about that, and I knew, if for no other reason, legally or not, but ethically, you know, I needed to disclose my status to anyone that I'd be having sex with.
Intimate with it, yeah.
End of story. But I also didn't want to hide it from my family. And I made a very conscious effort, especially with my children. I have two daughters now, 19 and 15. And I had every intention of telling them. That sort of went sideways. I was sort of forced into telling them sooner than I had wanted to through different circumstances that I won't get into today. But yeah, they were, and again, because I was educated and had done a lot of research myself into HIV, even before I was diagnosed, I knew about HIV, and I knew about, you know, how to protect myself and others, and getting tested regularly and that sort of thing. So I made it very clear to them that by the time I told them I was at the undetectable stage, I had been on meds for a while, and said, you know, it was probably 3-4 months after I was diagnosed that I finally told my daughters, and they were cool with it. Just as cool as they were when I came out previously. And my family beyond my daughters, I really didn't tell them about it. I actually told my mother about my HIV just a few months ago. My father, who passed away at the end of July, never knew, but when I came out, he was in the throes of dementia and Alzheimer's, and there wasn't any, I didn't see the value in telling him.
Makes sense.
And my brothers, who I told, very similar to when I came out as gay, was, you know, are you okay? And you're healthy?
And you're happy?
And when I was diagnosed, I was, as I mentioned earlier, I was single, I was alone. And one of the first things I thought about on that long wintry walk back to my apartment was, you know, I'm probably always going to be alone now, and I've got to get used to that. And a year and a month to the day that I got diagnosed is when I met my future husband.
Yeah.
And I'm engaged.
you're
I'm engaged to be married. Yeah, next July 21st, I'm walking down the aisle, or walking down the lawn actually, with my fiance. And yeah, that's something that when I was first diagnosed, I didn't see that in my future at all. I felt I was going to be alone for the rest of my life.